The Montgomery College Smithsonian Faculty Fellowship Program is a unique collaboration between the Paul Peck Humanities Institute and Smithsonian's Office of Educational Technology. This unique professional development opportunity encourages community college faculty to teach with the Smithsonian. In 2022, the program hit a milestone anniversary, celebrating 25 years, 235 faculty fellows, and more than 25,000 student visits to Smithsonian museums. Professor Heather Bruce Satrom has taught non-native speakers of English in the English Language for Academic Purposes program at Montgomery College since 2005. She has served as program coordinator, course coordinator, and academic advisor. Heather has participated in the Scholarship for Excellence in Teaching Fellowship, the Global Classrooms Fellowship, the Quantitative Reasoning in the Disciplines Fellowship, the Many Voices One College Global Humanities Fellowship, and the Belfer National Conference for English Educators at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum. Heather has also completed training in digital storytelling, and she incorporates both digital storytelling and museum education into her courses. Heather won an Outstanding Faculty Service Award in 2018. In the spring of 2023, Heather will take a sabbatical to work on an oral storytelling project to document stories of immigrant and refugee students at MC.
I'd like to begin with a quote by Paul Honstedt, the Director of Pedagogical Innovation at Roanoke College, from his book, Creating Wicked Students, Designing Courses for a Complex World. He wrote, and this was published in 2018, 10 years ago, few people anticipated the opening of Myanmar to the rest of the world, the rise of the Islamic State, face-to-face chat on cell phones, legalization of gay marriage across the United States, fake news, or the Zika virus. The parameters are changing. The tools and technologies are changing. We live in a wicked world, an unpredictable world. We need wicked students with wicked competencies. That quote really strikes me as incredibly important. Of course, this was published in 2018, and we know we've had many other wicked challenges since then, including, of course, the coronavirus. So something that's really important to me when I think about designing projects is how do I equip my students to handle problems like this? What kind of skills do we need to give them? And so the goals of my project were to engage students in the pressing issues of our time, and this is key, without making them feel hopeless or overwhelmed. To ask students to relate their own experiences to current matters of societal consequence, to consider how artists and activists reimagine and change our world, and to remind students that, in the words of Billie Holiday, the impossible will take a little while. A little context, I designed this project for two sections of ELI 990, which is the capstone course in ELAP. This course is an advanced integrated skills course for non-native speakers of English. They work on their reading, writing, speaking, and listening skills. We're trying to prepare them for their credit level courses. So the steps in the process of this project. First, I introduced students to issues and activists with a focus on Black Lives Matter. I taught students how to engage with visual art. We visited the exhibition Reckoning, Protest, Defiance, Resilience at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. And then I taught students how to create a digital story in response to one piece of art, with a lot of help from the wonderful interns in the digital storytelling program that we have at MC. Step one, introducing students to issues and activists. So I taught students through TED Talks and through readings about artists such as Titus Kaphar. We looked at public monuments like the Robert E. Lee Monument in Richmond, Virginia, which became a monument to George Floyd before it was removed in 2021. They learned about Bree Newsome Bass, the activist who removed the Confederate flag from the state capitol in South Carolina in 2015. Here's a photo of her doing that, and the helmet that she wore is actually in the museum. which I think is very powerful. They learned about Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, Clint Smith, Ron Finley, and Brian Stevenson. These are all powerful activists doing great work. Step 2 was to teach my students how to engage with visual art. So I wanted to really prepare them for their experience before going to the museum. So I used tools called quests. These are called questions for understanding, exploring, seeing, and thinking. They were created by Project Muse, Museums Uniting with Schools and Education at Harvard. And the idea is that there are 5 entry points into an artwork: aesthetic, narrative, foundational, logical, and experiential. So I'll give you an example. If we look at this photograph, Black Love Matters by Lee Zun, it's in the exhibition, we could take a narrative quest, a narrative approach to understanding this photograph by asking, perhaps, what is the story that we see in this work of art? Or if we look at Walking from 1958 by Charles Henry Alston, we could take an aesthetic approach to understanding this. We could ask, how do the colors and lines and shapes and movement of this work of art express an idea or an emotion? If we look at, for example, the portrait of Breonna Taylor by Amy Sherald, we could take a foundational, which is a philosophical approach to understanding this work of art. We could ask, what is said through art that cannot be said through words? Step 3 was to go to the exhibition. Just very quickly, Reckoning looks at the ways in which visual art has long provided its own protest, commentary, escape, and perspective for African Americans. Here are my students at the entrance of the exhibition. They were very excited to be in the museum with their friends, with their classmates. You can see, very enthusiastic. And then they went in, they explored, they took notes, they read, they took photos, they took videos. They were very engaged in the entire experience. After the museum visit, step 4 was to teach students to create a digital story in response to one piece of art. This image is from Professor Matthew Decker. If he's here, it kind of explains the process, the steps in creating a digital story. And the first one, of course, is to assign the prompt. So the prompt that I gave them was to choose one work of art in the exhibition that you find particularly meaningful or interesting. Think about why this work of art speaks to you, and you will create a digital story describing the work of art and explaining why it is meaningful to you. So really what I'm having students do now is move into an experiential quest, which asks, is there something that has happened in your own life that this work of art makes you think of? And if this work of art is the artist's half of a conversation with you, what do you say back to the artist? So here are some photos of the wonderful digital storytelling interns teaching my classes. They did a fabulous job. And 2 of the students who came and worked with my students are former students of mine from ELAP, which made me particularly happy to see their growth and progress. Here are students in story circles working with each other on their drafts of their scripts and revising. I saw a level of motivation, Dan alluded to this earlier, I saw a level of motivation that I had not seen in previous classes. Students were so engaged in creating responses to the works of art that they saw. And they wrote beautiful responses. I'd love to share all of them with you, but I'm just going to focus on one in the interest of time. A student named Xiaoming Li, who goes by Brian, he wrote in response to this painting, "But I'm still fly," in 2014, from 2014. So what I'm going to do now is share his digital story with you.
A piece of art influences people as much as a great book. I'm from China, and my name is Xiaoming Li, but people call me Brian. National Museum of African American History and Culture.
It is called Reckoning, Protest, Defiance, Resilience, and it aims to build connection and hope in the fight against racial inequality. A work of art that resonated with me the most was But I'm Still Flying. This life-size work was created in 2014 by the artist Fahamu Pico, a 47-year-old African-American painter who painted it on canvas. At first glance, it seemed that this work portrays the young African-American male fashion trend called sagging, where boxer shorts are worn above sagging pants. But according to the exhibit label, this painting encourages young black teenagers to transcend the so-called limitations put on them by society. This is where the title, But I'm Still Flying, came from. I was impressed by this painting since it links to my life experiences. This artwork reminds me of my own life story as a rebel. I was born in a small village in China called Bamboo Village. As I grew up, I was told that I would have to quit my education after middle school and then work at a local factory because my family didn't have the gene to go to high school. None of my ancestors had gone to high school, let alone university. I accepted this until I realized that I liked doing math and was very good at it. I refused the so-called genetic limitation. When I graduated from high school, I was the #1 student in our small town among 2,000 students, and I went to a top university in my country. Unfortunately, most of my peers went a different way. I'm convinced that most of them were given the same message by their parents and accepted those so-called limitations working in factories or on farmland in our small town. I didn't intend to judge anyone's life choice. I'm just wondering, however, if they should have had broader choice for their future lives. When I walked out of the museum, it was still windy and freezing, but I didn't feel cold anymore, since I was deeply encouraged. Looking forward, I believe the only limitation on me is myself. Now, I can't stop thinking that I could have flown higher if I had been encouraged when I was little instead of being given restrictions on my young mind. Today, 20 years after I graduated from high school, I know the same scenario is still happening every day in the place where I was born. This must change. As the artist Pico said, what if we encourage them to fly?